Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Now, are you interested about migration to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on a little bell on the side, so once we have all the updates and news, you'll be the first one of getting all the insights. Okay, now in this video today, I would like to share a news just came out right now. I think about a couple hours ago. It's pretty still hot news, and today's day is actually 13th of April 2021, Tuesday here. Now, what did I receive? A news basically is saying and coined the idea for the government of Australia to return back to the high immigration age. Now, as you know, if you have followed me enough and also following the topic of migration in Australia for the past about I think about 5 years, there has been just before Liberal government, Liberal Party took over as the government of Australia. They have been coining out and talk about the hot topic in regards to the reductions of immigrants of Australia. So this topic has been hot and been shared around, and the public, I think, thinking, well, yes, we need to have less immigrants in order to resolve the problem of congestions in Sydney and Melbourne. Now, obviously, my previous video had chat about this. Virus COVID-19 actually overkilled that mystery of how congestion was caused by the immigrants. So obviously it's not true. So today I've received this news coming out from the Australian. So it's actually the top news service in Australia. Now, basically the topic says government clearly planning a return to high immigration, and the author is of the name Judith Sloan. So who is Judith? Obviously that's Judith there. If you can see that, it's right beside me, and I Google who Judith actually is, and so I found this. She is the commissioner for productivity commissions. Interesting. So obviously productivity is very, very important for sure. It basically drafts out the requirement now how the economy of the nation should grow in the future. And she also is an author of a book which it's selling. No, it's actually in the library of the University of Queensland. The book is named Temporary Movement of People to and from Australia, and the author is Judith Sloan. So basically, Judith, the lady, is actually an expert in the topic of immigration. So whatever that she actually saying and actually publish in the public is actually obviously some sort of weight to what she actually published. So what is she saying today is that the government clearly means the government already have that in plan to return back to high immigration, obviously due to the problem of the economy after the pandemic. So let's read on and go through this with all of you, and maybe a lot of people might think this should be it and this should not be it, and whatever you think and whatever that you may have a comment, leave that at the comment right down below. So let's read on. Will the big Australia brigade win out? This question worth posing as we begin to return to a more normal world. So obviously the big Australia was the topic where back 5-6 years ago the Labour Party and the Liberal Party were actually fighting about it. Obviously, Liberal Party won. The Conservative seeks to reduce the number of migrants. But as a nation like Australia, the sixth largest continent in the world, and with the total number of population of around 25 million, obviously that is not enough. And why is that? So let's read on. And obviously the contribution to this topic is obviously what happened in 2020. While the rural rate of population growth associated with close international borders is something most Australians have welcomed, and some of the federal government intend to return population growth turbocharged. Here we go, turbocharged by immigration as soon as possible. Before I explain why it's likely to be all systems go in returning to the high rates of immigration that were the norm of pre-COVID, it was just running through the numbers. Obviously, before the pandemic, Australian population was growing at around 1.5% to 1.6% a year. This put us on the top of all the other developed countries. So obviously that's if you see OECD's report, Australia has been growing quite fast, although the total number of migrant intake is far less than Canada, but the total growth is actually better. The net overseas migration was contributing about two-thirds. So two-thirds, that's huge. That is huge. Of this growth population at 200,000 to 250,000 a year, and a large single group migrants arrive, stay at least 16 months. I don't know why 16 months was coined, or either 18 months, that's 1.5 years. But anyhow, 16 months was international student. Obviously, I think they're cutting out of some vacations timing there. This had been a situation of the past 15 odd years, so long time, a long time, 15 odd years. With some fluctuation from global financial crisis, mining boom occurred after. It was marked contrast in situation before that, when net overseas migration rarely exceeds 100,000 a year. That was also when permanent migration was numerically more important than temporary migration, a reverse of recent situations. So basically, that's another topic, whether PR versus TR and things like that. But anyhow, I think there's going to be more changes coming up. So again, there are so many signs. First of all, from the Prime Minister Scott Morrison saying migration overhaul on the news, and then obviously today's news, this is huge as well. So let's read on. During these years, high immigration employers were happy, obviously. They are labor, skilled, unskilled. University were happy as well because they take a lot of international students, accommodations, and all the food, travel, living costs, and that's all the thing that drives up the three major cities: Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. And obviously Gold Coast, Cairns, you name it, Adelaide, Perth, Darwin, Hobart, and also Canberra. Take the following quote: recent population statement released by the Federal Treasury. So what did they say? They say migration will be a key component of Australia's economic and health recovery from COVID-19. The government will maximize the economic benefit of migration program by addressing skill shortage, attracting highly skilled migrants in niche industries, increasing investments to support economic recovery and support regional migration. So again, migration is very, very important. They are really just words. In fact, the composition of net migration has become much less skilled across time. Moreover, as productivity commissions, that's where Judith was serving there, has demonstrated what passes a skills in permanent migrant intake is not very skilled at all, and many who enter through this gateway are not employed in the skilled occupation. Well, that's another issue to be addressed, but it gets worse. Migration is important. Some economic aging population. So that's another key problem here, because the aging populations is actually happening around the world, not just Australia, because as you know the history, they were baby boomers. That's the parents of my age. and they're more and more they're living longer, and we're getting less children. So aging population is not an issue, and obviously the public health is becoming an issue, and the aged people with the public health and with health issues and fitness, obviously they attracts more expenses for the nation as well. So they need more young people to make money. As migrants tend to arrive in younger age than average Australian, this means that they are generally in position of contributing to the workforce, high participation in resident population, because migrants tend to arrive in Australia in relatively young age. Obvious, that's pretty obvious. If you're in your 60s or 70s, why would you bother migrate? It doesn't make any sense. So read on. If there were no future migration, we would miss out the demographic and economic benefit of migrants, bringing into increase proportion people working and paying income tax, decreasing the proportion of people joining our government services. So that's another key. So I think as a nation of Australia, they are actually seeing the after 2020 that not just Australia, a lot of countries are actually looking to attract more migrants. Giving you an example, Japan. Japan has been conservative for the past 100 years. They never thought about getting migrants into Japan, but I think start from last year, because the aging population, Japan had opened up the visa pathway to actually migrate to become a Japanese or holding a Japanese passport. So that's all the sign that we're looking at. So period and time is changing, and the policy is required to change and adapt to what we actually have and currently. The analysis is laughable. Okay, it makes no mention of impact of immigration per capita GDP. Well, that's very interesting. A point made by Productivity Commission. There is also no consideration of ethical problem taking best and brightest from country they really use their services. Why Treasury recent population statement is worth looking at its point assumption being made about future level net overseas migrations. After just a few years, Treasury is expecting net migration to return to its pre-pandemic level, averaging about 240,000 a year. Now that's pretty high. Now how they gonna achieve that? Obviously, let's see what happens. We have some further insight of the government thinking about future. So this is key here. All the reading above was about the background, and we have some insight. So that's the new stuff. What's coming up? Government thinking about the future migrant intake from equally defective draft report released by Joint Standing Committee on Migration on Australia's Skill Migration Program, to say that recommendation are disgrace is to be kind. Okay, they are demanding employer group and employers who prefer not to find local workers or invest in their trainings. They involve streamlining migrant entry, removing the need of labor market testing. Interesting. Okay, because labor market testing, if you have followed my video, it has become so complex, where cost-wise and also time-consumed, absorbing employer from contributing to a training fund and expanding a list of priority migration skill occupation. It even recommends that government reserve places on flights in quarantine skilled migrants that are all employer-sponsored visa. Interesting. I'm not sure how that will work. For once, Labour, so that's the previous government, has demonstrated important opposition by issuing dissenting report. It's hard to disagree with the comment there that you couldn't make it. You couldn't make this stuff up. It will make sense if the report was released on April 1st, but it's not. Okay, so the Joint Committee, basically, and Lisa, I think she did have some article as well. I recall that name. She hangs head in shame, comment that we need to bring back skilled migration to fill essential gaps to help create jobs in Australia. Simply point, basically they need more people there. At this stage, it is clear the government is planning, so they that's the big thing. If they're planning, that's good. That means the door of migration is opening up wider. To learn nothing from COVID experience, to ignore the wishes of most Australians to resume high rates immigration as soon as possible, using the veil, meeting skill needs and benefiting the economy. What the government should do, by contrast, is to consider approach immigration, not least because it will have some electoral advantages. It is wrong to ignore the cost of immigration, pressure on infrastructure, accommodation services, lower wage growth, and a loss of social cohesion, to name a few, while exaggerating the benefits. I totally agree with this point, because the past 5 to 6 years, I have seen so many migrants suffer, and so many employer regionals especially suffer the issue. It is very well interest group that's seeking high rate immigration of their own gain, but the government should do what's the nation's interest. Returning to the pre-COVID situation doesn't meet that test. Anyway, so anyway, that's basically what the article is actually saying. So it actually proposed a way. And they are looking at government clearly planning to return back to high immigration. I think that's a good thing. However, a lot of people will leave a comment saying, so when is offshore available for EOI, accepting invites? I don't have that. I don't have the answer to that. But as long as we are aiming at the right direction, I think you should all be good. So what is your thought? What do you think? Should Australia return back to high immigration, or should not? Leave your comment right down below. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.